Welcome to
Hey.
the show. Welcome to the show, Tarun.
Hey, Tarun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Love to be on air.
Of course. And you're my first ever guest that I get to introduce. So Amazon Bedrock will always play a special role in my heart. So a huge thank you for joining us today. And a huge congratulations to you and the entire team for such an exciting feature.
Thank you. Thank you.
So when I think about the world of custom model imports, I often harken back to my role working in hybrid edge. A lot of what we do is extending AWS services to new locations, and customers ask us, how do I manage my own workflows where maybe there's a service that I'm building that I want to extend? There's some customization element. And we know customers are continuing to want to access breadth and depth. Easiest place to build and scale generative AI applications is Bedrock. So obviously there's going to be that need for custom models and bringing them in. What were you hearing from customers that really motivated the build of the service?
Yeah, that's a great question, Robbie. So, taking a step back, for those who don't know, Amazon Bedrock is the easiest way for customers to build generative AI applications using foundation models, right? And last year, when we GA'd the service, we wanted to kind of have the widest model selection in terms of foundation-based models so that customers could just access them with a single API call and not worry about anything. And then as we started talking to customers, we started, and Bedrock also added customization capabilities where you could come and customize your own models within Bedrock. But as we started talking to more and more customers, we found that each customer had their own bespoke customization need. So for whatever reason that we'll get into later, they've already invested money in creating customized models using like popular architectures like Llama and Mistral, right? And they wanted to provide their application developers with a single interface where they could access both models, foundation models from Bedrock that are offered, as well as their own custom models. And that was really the spark of why we started this journey on this feature.
That's pretty fantastic. I mean, I'm pretty sure Robbie saw this. Humble brag, I worked with the team to launch the generative AI competency for our partners within the Amazon Partner Network. And many of these partners help these customers understand that while, yes, you are potentially already investing in things like Llama and Mistral, it is super important to not wait until the absolute perfect intersection of what you're looking for and what you think you have versus taking what you already have and not go and reinvent the wheel. Many of the customers that had done a thing previously and potentially some only in POC fashion, they couldn't take that first step because for them it was very difficult to justify having to go and redo it again. And for the bulk of partners that I spoke to this week to talk about exactly this, they were over their skis enthused about exactly what you just mentioned. Hey, we spent a ton of considerable time and effort training our models in Llama 2, and now we can just provide that one API for our development team, our customers to go consume. This was, I can honestly state that with 100% conviction, this was probably one of the bigger launches that many partners and customers were looking forward to. So congrats. Like, seriously, this is a big deal.
That's awesome.
So maybe let's start by defining our terms. We've defined Amazon Bedrock. That's a good start. But when I think of customization, that can be a whole host of different things. You could customize the underlying foundation model you select. The beauty of Bedrock is it's going to manage the infrastructure for you. So now you're not customizing the underlying infrastructure that was self-managed in a previous scenario. What do we mean by customization in this case?
That's a great question, Robbie. So when we talk to customers, right, customers tell us that they do the types of customization that they do fall into majorly three buckets. The first bucket is just like what we call fine tuning. So in this scenario, you're taking the base model from Llama, and then you're using your data, and then you're using a fine tuning recipe, and you're altering the fine tuning, the model weights, and you're just altering the model weights and to kind of respond to your specific use case, right? So that's the first bucket of customization that we see customers do. And then the second bucket is when like customers have a little more advanced use cases. Like I was talking to a Japanese customer, and they wanted to take Llama, and they wanted to, their customers understood Japanese, so they wanted to make tweak Llama and make it respond in Japanese, right? So that's a really unique and very nice use case. And they were saying, hey, when is Bedrock going to support Japanese in Llama? So that's a little more advanced of a use case. And the third really advanced use case, don't try this at home, is when for certain kind of really expert users where they really want to kind of have fine-grained control of the data that they're using for pre-training. They don't know what goes on in the base model, what data is used. Not all model providers are transparent about it. So they want to have their choice of publicly available data and like proprietary data, and they want to kind of control to a very fine grain. They want to change the context length, and they want to do really advanced stuff with LLMs, and then they want to kind of import that and export it to their model provider. So roughly, those are the three broad buckets of customization that we support with Amazon Bedrock Custom Model Import.
Yeah, I think it's super important, and I think maybe given our position as technologists, kind of underappreciated the ability for a customer to consume the model of their choice in the localized language without having to do a stop and re-import and potentially revalidation of all the work that they've done. This was exactly the case that trumped up a customer that I had worked with in Brazil that was absolutely adamant that it would be only in Brazilian Portuguese. And it was very difficult for us to even broach the conversation with them. It was something that was deeply sensitive for them. That even just giving them that ability to do so. In fact, as soon as I heard and realized that this was going to be a thing, I reached out to the partner to help them understand, hey, here's how we can help you now. As a result, we've got a call with them coming up next week, so we can start exploring about what it would look like to take them off their self-managed model and put them into Bedrock for the first time in a very, very interesting use case in manufacturing. With the caveat of wanting to be sure we don't go too deep into the weeds, at least not initially, what can you tell me about the different model architectures that I, as a curious person, or even the aforementioned customer down in Brazil, would be able to do with custom model import with Bedrock?
Yeah, absolutely. So today with the preview launch, we support Llama, Mistral, and the Flan T5 architectures. And last week or earlier this week when, Meta dropped Llama 3, that was all the rage. And immediately you saw people creating 800 variations of Llama 3 and the internet just went berserk, right? So so we see the same trend carries on to our customers. So we see a majority of our customers customizing either on Llama or Mistral architectures, and that's something that's accessible to them right away. But again, as you guys are probably aware, this space keeps evolving every 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a lifetime here, and every new model seems to be dropping every other week. So we're going to keep stay plugged in, and as new architectures evolve and as customers are getting excited about it, we're going to keep adding support for those architectures and enabling you to import them to Bedrock.
It almost makes your job easy to work backwards from customer needs because the needs are so prevalent. You have that immediate real-time feedback day over day. So you have an opportunity to make these rapid changes. And clearly this is a testament to that working backwards mentality, but the increased customer choice ultimately that you get. You have your foundation models that are natively supported. That's going to continue to grow. But then the ability to import custom models, the aperture expands so significantly because, again, we talked about defining our terms again. Domain adaptation, it could be introduce vertical specific domain knowledge that you wouldn't want for another use case, that you only want if and when that meets your use case, or a specific language. And now you have all of that come together. So my first question would then be, you mentioned the Japanese use case. We're only in preview here today. We want to get that early customer feedback. Where can you build and leverage this feature today?
Yeah, why don't we get to a short demo of the feature?
Yeah.
And Robbie, before I get that, you made a very interesting point that I want to double down on. So when we talk to most of our customers, it's not just they standardize on one model and that's all the model they use, right? Some of the most interesting use cases involve mixing and matching multiple different models, and sometimes you're using the base model. Each of them have their own cost performance profiles, and you want to mix and match and tailor them exactly to your application to optimize what you're trying to do, right? And so that's so true. And with custom model import, we are expanding the aperture of what's possible with all these mixing and matching capabilities.
Right.
Yeah, and that it's part and parcel because exactly as you mentioned, Tarun, there's a customer that I work with on pretty long engagement so far, and one individual team has two flagship production type of offerings to the market. Sorry, and in those two offerings, there's like something like 10 or 12 models each informing decisions. Some trading off accuracy for speed, accuracy above all things, inclusive of latency, some that are latency sensitive. They don't particularly care. They just want to get to the output. But yeah, would love to see the demo of what this would look like in practice to help encourage folks to go out and try this for themselves.
Absolutely. So as Robbie mentioned earlier in the show, the service is in preview and it's available in the Northern Virginia region. So we'll see how we can get how easy it is to import a model from the Bedrock console. So all I have to do is to get started. And then you can see on the left-hand pane, like there's a new section that we've added for imported models. So just clicking there takes me to two tabs. One talking about the models that I've already imported, and the other one are my import jobs. And about that, you can see a panel with which briefly explains how the model works. So let's just get started and import a new model. So here for, as you probably know, so Bedrock does not offer Code Llama as a native base model. So today we're going to import Code Llama and play around with it. And so here I have the Hugging Face repository for Code Llama. And one of the things that you need to keep in mind is that we support the safe tensor format for model import. So as long as you checkpoint your model and it's in safe tensor format, you should be good. And again, it says Code Llama, which means it's based off of the Llama architecture. But if you really want to be sure, you can check the config.json file and make sure that it says Llama here. Let me zoom that in a little bit for you. So now that I've validated that it's based on the Llama architecture and it has all the files, including the tokenizer and the model and the all the files. So all I need to do is to just copy this into an S3 bucket. So and then I'm going to so I've already done that for you. So let's give it a model name. So I'm going to say the import job is pre-filled for me, and then I'm just going to choose an S3 bucket, which I've already done, and I'm going to pick my model here, and the role is created for me. I'm just going to use the created name, and that's it. I just hit import model, and it's as easy as this. So now I can go and I see in my jobs pane, I can see that there's an importing job that's happened here, and I just kicked it off. If I need more details about the job, it tells me the job duration, how long it's been running, what's the model name, and when did I kick it off, what's the role, and all that good stuff. So luckily for us, we don't have, and the import job usually takes a few minutes, about like I would say 10 minutes. And during that time, we kind of take all the model artifacts, validate that it really works, and we can inference out of it and all that stuff in the background. And once you're done importing the model, so a successful import, you just see it on the models tab. So here I'm going to go and click into the model. It gives me a model ARN. So I can use this ARN with my invoke model API. And then it tells me that the model architecture is Llama. And let's go and play around with it.
Would love to. While this is going, where can a curious user in the chat potentially go and fire this up? Do we have a list somewhere of the regions where this is supported and available today?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's supported in the Northern Virginia region. So since it's in preview, so we'll be expanding to more regions shortly. And yeah, so just go to your console, Northern Virginia region, and you can start playing around with it.
Yeah. No worries. It's good to know that we are widely and willing to go in and expand this out to where our customers are, especially since seemingly every AMEA customer that I speak to, they want to be able to run it locally to not run afoul of any PII, PHI opportunities or rather regulations. Exact same thing with Canada. So I would assume that our friends overseas can stay tuned, and eventually we're going to see this come out to them. That a pretty safe statement?
Yep, absolutely. At AWS, we always take our customer input and we use that to make our product decisions, and this is no different.
Okay, awesome. So while this bakes in the background,
Mhm.
uh, Tarun, is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about what you and your team are working on? Some of the things that we could potentially be, kind of sitting there with bated breath, like the way that I know I am and Robbie probably is, about what's in the hopper, what we could expect to see, specific to model import anyway.
Yeah, so one thing I'd like to call out here is as you saw that there was no step to provision infrastructure or do any of that stuff. So it's like here you just need to import your model and then you can access it from the playground.
Okay, awesome. Robbie, anything else come to mind to you? I know I've done a lot of talking here. Sorry, it's the giddiness and the eagerness kind of stepping in. So is there anything that top of mind to you that you want to run through Tarun while we still have him for the next couple of minutes?
Yeah, maybe just one quick point to close out here. And again, a huge thank you, Drew. Demo is super clear. I saw in the chat someone was saying, I'm fairly new to programming. And what I love about this is even if you don't understand the safe tensor format, the ability to take an off-the-shelf model in Hugging Face that meets your needs, import it into Bedrock. You're not managing any infrastructure and you go right into a text playground. We've now reduced that barrier to entry for generative AI on AWS to a few clicks and about 2 minutes of configuration. That's incredibly powerful and a testament to the tremendous engineering and optimization that's been done by your team.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Quick question, I guess, for the audience. If you are leveraging Bedrock as part of your generative AI goals, would love to see for the audience, what models are you using within Bedrock, and potentially, what are you experimenting on your own that before model import became a thing that you would potentially be interested in looking at and leveraging? Personally, I was a huge fan of Llama 2 initially when it came out. I started kicking the tires, and in some use cases it worked well enough. In others it just didn't. So in doing the exact thing that we would ask customers to do, try different models, start experimenting. I started leveraging Claude 2 as soon as Haiku and Opus came out. I kind of started putting Llama 2 down to the side just because of the amount of extra work that it would take to get it incorporated. But now this is a thing. I really see an opportunity for some of the apps and things that I'm working on with internal teams at AWS, as well as with partners. I see the opportunity to run both of these in lockstep. And exactly to your point, Rob, without having to go and train the model, I have to run and manage the infrastructure, worry about the scaling, etc. It's really liberating, and I think that's really what's contributing to the giddiness with me right now.
Couldn't agree more. I think that
there's a great question from the chat, and I would love to get your feedback on that, Tarun. Nick, can we bring that up, please? I believe it has to do with resourcing versus something. I'm sorry, I didn't get a quick look at it. Yeah, Robbie, you want to take this one?
Sure, I love it. We're going right to the, maybe not philosophical, but to the business case of how customers are using generative AI, which is the right question to be asking. So the question for you, Tarun, is whatever the vertical ends up being, there's a question that whether it's whatever the domain adaptation use case is for chatbots, is it cheaper to hire people, or it depends on how many people use the service? In other words, how do you think about weighing the use of generative AI against manually extracting those insights?
That's a great question, Robbie. Then there are multiple layers to it, and as of course the answer is it depends. So basically, one of the things that I really like about Amazon Bedrock is that it lets you start off with a pay-per-use model, which is a token-based model where you only pay for what you use. So if your usage volume is really low, and then there are certain models like the Mistral-based models that we have, where it's just a few cents for a million tokens, less than $1 for a million tokens. So you can start off there and validate your product market fit without the worry of incurring serious costs. And as your workload scales, and as your app becomes viral, and as you start getting product market fit, there is a dedicated capacity option that you can migrate to when you know that you have that guaranteed demand. So it gives you the flexibility to move between different deployment options, and all that is fully managed for you in a serverless way, so that you don't have to worry about that. And then depending upon the volume, you can also make the trade-off about like, hey, is it cheaper for me to like hire a workforce, train them, and for the volume of incoming calls that are coming in, like what is the amortized cost, and compare that with the cost and quality available with some of these generative AI solutions. So it's super exciting and really great question.
Well said. And like many things, the answer always is it depends. But the ability to make that decision well informed with data and the opportunity to experiment, inheriting the value proposition of the cloud economic model, pay for only the resources you consume, Amazon Bedrock deeply inherits. And I think your feature is going to play a very, very important role in that. Again, everybody tuning in, just to start, we're here, AWS OnAir, talking about the preview of custom model imports. And we couldn't have done it without you, Tarun. Thanks so much for joining us on AWS OnAir, and hope to see you again sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.